We are here live for the NRG Thursday Night Locals with a Gardy mirror on stream, round one, between two of our strongest local players, Rafal Gladys and Dan Hugar.
Yeah, these two players have been a force to reckon with in the Chicago land area as well as at a national and even a world's level. They're two very experienced players looking to duke it out round one and set a good tone for the night.
A lot of Gardy tonight at Locals, so we'll try not to only stream that, but it might end up getting featured quite frequently, so we'll see. So this Gardy mirror, there's not a lot that either player can do to like necessarily mess with their opponent. It's gonna come down a lot to who's getting the first attack and then chaining attacks and trying to take those two prize knockouts throughout the game. And if one player can get to the point where they boss two Guardy EXs, generally that player will win the game. And a lot of times it will just come down to a boss on one Guardy EX. But regardless, like going first here, if Dan can get the first attack, he's gonna be pretty far ahead, at least in as far as the mirror goes.
Yeah, I think this game will probably come down to taking a lot of single prizes and then finishing up with two big two prize knockouts. And maybe Rafal can, get the board set up quicker than Dan. That's always a possibility in a mirror match, right? Whoever gets the better board faster is going to be in the dominating position here.
And we see Dan with that Mew, which is a play that a lot of Guardy players will look for on their first turn. Of course, he was looking for a Battle VIP pass here just to set up his full board, but it looks like he's just going to settle for that Ultra Ball with some decent cards to discard, just a Psychic and a Ninja, and I think, or Psychic and a Manaphy, and I think we'll see another Ralt here. And Dan's looking to have he's pretty content with this turn one. Of course, he would have liked to draw on a Battle Pass, and he just not only to thin them out of his deck, but also like just to set up his board. But he can't really complain too much with this setup. And then I imagine we'll see kind of a similar thing from Rafal here with that turn one Mew looking to really set up his board additionally because his his hand, neither his nor Dan's opening hand was necessarily the strongest.
Yep. So we do see the Mew come out, which will help Rafal really get set up here. Hopefully. I mean, he could whiff off of the Mew, but it is a little unlikely for that to happen. Between the level balls, any VIP passes, he should
Fog
be fine
crystals,
here.
ultra
Yeah.
ball. We generally see like the Mew, um, like when we see the Guardy players grab Mew, like they're doing it because they know they play enough outs that grabbing the Mew should almost always, um, or at least using Mew should almost always get you like the return of one Ralt, which is what you would have got anyways if you're just using level ball or fog crystal. But actually, that turn one research for Rafal's gonna be really strong. Dan did have quite a good hand, but um, his hand there's like a decent chance his hand gets even better if Rafal were to Iona him. So just getting that research and looks like he drew a lot of the Pokemon that he was looking for anyways. So yeah, Rafal has to be pretty happy with his spot. Looks like he has that candy in hand. He has multiple Ralts. Dan is gonna have to make something from. Well, we know his hand is Corollia plus Iona, so that's two of the strongest cards he could be holding. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the turn two attack is gonna be easy by any means. So Rafal has to be pretty fine with the spot he's in. Neither playing drawing a battle pass, so those are going to be some free cards to discard later on with refinement, but also those are going to be some bad cards that they probably will end up drawing that they would prefer not to. So we'll just have to see how Dan's turn two goes, and I think that will uh, provide a pretty overarching explanation of how this game's going to go.
Now, you've played a lot of mirror matches in your years, Michael. And how do you feel about the Guardy one? I've heard a lot of people say, it's super interactive. There's a lot of thought in it. I've personally never played a Guardy deck, so I've never played the matchup. But I feel like in a lot of mirrors, uh, especially ones with slower starts, that they are very interactive. So how do you rank it amongst all-time mirror matches?
Um, there is some interaction in the Guardy mirror, but if both players like seem to know what they're doing, a lot of the time it's gonna come more down to just who draws better, who's getting those first attacks, and who's getting those boss knockouts um on Gardy EXs. And one thing for Dan here, he did have an energy in hand prior to that Iono. Um, but and I think I would have liked to seen that attach because not attaching it like it doesn't necessarily help him with thinning anything. And regardless, like he'll get that attachment back if he were to discard it. So I think most of the time I would have preferred to see that energy just come down onto Mew. Because regardless, if he gets the attack this turn, it's always just gonna be a pivot at the very least. So we're gonna see that Curlia come out, see his Psychic and a Shining Arcana. Mew, I think this is looking for an Ultra Ball because he does have that candy in hand, but after he mewed for that Ultra Ball turn 1, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult just to draw that Ultra Ball for that Guardy EX. But Level Ball is fine, it's gonna let him keep drawing cards. He's really looking for the Guardy EX this turn. Um, and he addition like even further, he would be looking for the Cresselia, but at this point in time, with having neither an out to Cresselia or Guard EX off this 2 card refinement, it's not going to be um the highest of chances, but there is a decent chance of still getting the attack here.
Yep. The Curlia's. I mean, you probably would have liked to find something else off the Mew, but Curlia's always good. Seeing extra cards, thinning through the deck, getting the resources.
Yeah.
They are on very, very similar lists. They believe they share 58 cards when they were talking earlier today. So there is some hand disruption in both of their decks. So neither player feeling too comfortable with keeping a big hand.
So I would like to see the Battle Pass discarded there because this is what I was gonna say. Drawing that Greninja.
Yep.
Yeah,
Shaking
Dan's
his
looking at
head.
the
He
cam.
knows.
Yeah,
He knows.
discarding the battle pass leaves Greninja as an out, and we're just gonna see the rare candy into Shining Arcana. So Den's gonna have a pretty solid board to say the least. But if he were to have discarded the battle pass, um, he would have had pretty decent odds, or not decent odds, but he would have left himself with more outs, such as drawing that Greninja. Um, just to hitting the plays that he wants to hit this turn. That collapse is gonna hurt Rafal a little bit, but um Rafal is really looking to capitalize off this lack of a turn 2 candy from Dan. And um that's Dan is by no means out of the game. But if Rafal were to hit a Cresselia onto a Curlia this turn, I would think he's quite far ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like Rafal wants to discard that VIP pass here. He might be debating if he wants to use Mew first or second. But yeah, so he decides to go with the Mew first, trying to find
Rare
one of the pieces probably. There's a rare candy.
There's a rare candy, so Rafal's already having probably a better turn than Dan did because he just has that Candy Guardy in hand. Yet to use any of his discarding abilities, so sells concealed, Curlia, plenty of options here. So Rafal has, and he has that worker in hand, meaning he can worker the collapse, and then if he draws it out to the Cresselia, then he's really gonna be putting the pressure on Dan's board.
Do you think it was right for Dan to not play the Greninja here? I know he didn't have an energy to use with it, but with the risk of Iono coming in, do you
Yeah,
think it was wise to hold on to it, save it for later, hope to not get it knocked out?
yeah, I think I agree with you. I would have liked to see I definitely would have liked to see the Greninja come down. He's not. I mean, one of his Pokemon is either getting knocked out on Rafal's next turn, or he's just winning the game at that point. So there's not a great reason why Ninja would not come down, in my opinion.
So we see the worker played here,
And that worker
which
actually is going to get the Artisan, which will allow Rafal to get the Cresselia, which is the play that he was really looking for this turn. I think Rafal doesn't quite have everything he needs because he would have really liked to see another Curlia this turn. But that Cresselia is definitely going to put in a lot of work. Um, And this also kind of comes back to earlier where I think Dan was felt like he had to discard the energy in order to if he were to draw everything he needed. And that could have been possibly different if before playing the Iono he attached attached an energy to that Mew that he has in the active.
So it looks like Rafal only has 4 energy in the discard here.
Yep.
But oh, he has 1 in hand, so
He does have one in hand,
should
and
be good there.
one is gonna go back to the
Yep.
discard after the Mew's retreated. And then we will probably see that last energy come down on the Curlia. Or honestly, I could see the Ralts here because of course if Dan is gonna make his own Cresselia play, he's always gonna target the Curlia that's not getting evolved. So the energy has higher chances of staying in play on the Ralts, but there's also very good possibility that that's not something that Rafal wants. So that second energy there. Well, Rafal just has a much better board overall than Dan.
Yeah, a little bit of a
So
lackluster prize there with the VIP, but you can always just
trade
give it away, yeah, and get some more cards. So not a terrible prize, but I think Rafal might have liked to find something a little different there.
Yeah, his hand's a little bit awkward, not having quite the resources that we would expect like a normal Gardy end of turn hand to have, but boss is certainly pretty good, so can't really complain about that. And Dan is pretty not risk adverse, but a boss here could really set him back. If he cannot find another Ralts line to set up. He's gonna start with that Artisan. Probably grabbing either a Ralts or Cresselia. Yep, looks like he's gonna grab that last Ralts, which is not a mistake that he's playing. He's playing that Ralts because its side shot attack allows you to bench a Ralts in certain matchups. Um, and especially in the mirror, it allows you to finish off one of your opponent's very damaged threats. And like it's something that you want to have on board. So that's why a lot of lists are playing 2 of the teleportation bursts because it's nice to be able to move out of the active. 1 of the memory skip because it's pretty useful in a lot of matchups, and then the 1 uh side shot rolls from Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet base just so they have that last little option at basically no cost.
Yeah, I mean sometimes all you need is just that little bit of damage on a 1 prize body, and if it buys you a turn, that could be the turn that wins you the game.
For sure, yeah. Then sees that Super Rod, which he was pretty intent on grabbing, but just gonna play out his whole Mysterious Tail just because following the effect of the attack. Gonna see a Curlia come back, which makes sense. Because Gardy would like to have a Curlia and a Ralts, I'm pretty sure, as Gardy likes to have access to um as high power of a board as possible, to say the least. And then I'm not sure if Dan has the Cresselia attack of his own this turn, but that's definitely something that he would be looking for. And I think I do see that Cresselia right there. So that's definitely something that he will probably be looking for. We see that Worker on the Artisan. Pretty
So pretty
solid.
good,
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
good 3 for
solid
him.
draw for Dan. Ninja is gonna come down now. Going back, like we both said that we probably would have liked to see Ninja come down the previous turn, but um, better late than never. And Ninja is pretty important to Gardy as a whole, just for cycling that energy into their discard. Um, yeah, just for getting that energy into the discard and seeing additional cards. So almost always good to have done. But yeah, we're just gonna probably see that Cresselia attack of Dan's own onto the Curlia. Okay, so I think that first attachment to the Shining Arcana was from hand. Then the rest is gonna be from that Gardevoir ability, and then Dan's not placing the damage, but we know he's just gonna be moving that 80 damage counter he put in play with Psychic Embrace to knock out that Curlia.
Yep. So Rafal has access to some bosses here. Do you think he's looking to make a play this turn? Maybe either hit the Greninja or the Shining Arcana?
I I could see bossing up the Greninja and Cresselia the bench Ralts. But I think if he has access to it, Rafal really would like to boss that Guardy EX because that's going to be the most difficult thing for Dan to respond to because he would need another candy. And we know he's already down one, and he's not able to use. So that like hits Dan in two really interesting ways because Dan's not able to use that Ralts as like any draw. So he's pretty much locked out, at least in terms of non-supporter draw between Mew Greninja and Shining Arcana because he has to be able to evolve that Ralts. Although the the Shining Arcana is one energy away from attacking already, so a damaged Zacian, which would have to be, it would have to be pretty damaged to knock out a Gardy EX, is not like the end of the world for Dan. Fall not loving his options here. A lot of multiple battle pass in hand, which we know. And then two rare candies, two boss. Just a little bit awkward here. Not exactly what he would like. So we're gonna see that Ultra Ball away, two Psychic Energies for Curlia. There was a chance that Rafal could have grabbed the Shining Arcana because he is holding a candy in hand. But Rafal, we can definitely see, is just not loving his options here overall.
Yeah, I think Rafal's going with the slightly slower but more methodical plan of probably Cresselia hitting
That
Mew,
Ralt.
or
Probably the Ralts. I mean,
could be Ralts, yeah.
the Mew. Yes, it's like a much lighter commitment in terms of your energy, but you really want to focus down the Ralts if you're going to be using multiple Cresselia attacks.
Yeah.
We see that trade on the battle pass, which makes sense. And we see another Ultra Ball from Rafal, which is not bad. Definitely something um he was mostly looking for. I'm not quite sure how many energy he has in the discard, but just lining up another Ralts, him and so Dan actually will have a slightly better board than him, uh, going into the next turn if he can bench that other Ralts. But overall, Rafal's still gonna be ahead on the prize trade, so I don't think he can be too upset about uh what he has going for himself.
Yeah, Rafal looked to have only one energy left in deck, so maybe a couple in the prizes here, just depending on how much he has in the discard. But a lot of resources available to him with only one energy left in the deck, so lots of ways to play around this board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're just gonna see that Moonglow reverse on that Ralts, limiting Dan just to that Shining Arcana and the Greninja in terms of draw. Probably see Dan start off with a concealed cards, I imagine, this turn, but he might be trying to thin to hit something.
He's considering playing something, just can't
And
quite tell what it is.
with that slight tilt on the Greninja, I'm assuming it's an energy, but there's a few other things that it can be if he's just looking to play a card. But I'm really not sure what Dan has access to in hand, 'cause that will really depend. 'Cause if Dan can hit that first boss on the Gardy EX and really take the prize lead, like that's how one player can like come from behind in the Gardy matchup and put themselves in a decent spot to win the game. I know Rafal's hand is pretty solid, at least in terms of hitting that boss knockout eventually, because he has two boss in hand. But I will be interested to see what Dan has access to and what he really goes for this turn. One thing about that 60 HP Ralts is that if Rafal decides to go for another Cresselia attack, the 60 HP only requires 3 energies put into play, so Rafal can do it like much easier than another 4 energy attack would be. So probably at this point going to see the concealed cards from Dan, but or a fog crystal, thinning even more. Gardy has to be pretty consistently thinning almost every turn because regardless of what they have in hand, like they're always trying to see new cards that are at least going to help them advance the board state. And this matchup is kind of like it's like it's a back and forth, which any mirror would be, but it's a back and forth in terms of you are trying to hit like the most powerful possible play, without leaving yourself completely susceptible to some like boss plays that your opponent could make, or yeah, mainly just boss plays or um like uh, attacks on your board that are just that you don't necessarily have the board to respond to. So we're gonna see what Dan ends up doing this turn. Looks like he's calculating something in his head, which I'm assuming has something to do with the Shining Arcana boss knockout on Gardy, but still interested to with that reversal. Yeah, it really looks like that's what he's leaning towards doing at least. Gonna start with the retreat, um, which I'm a little bit interested about because he hasn't used Shining Arcana, and generally before retreating, you almost always want to use your information abilities, because okay, so he's gonna be collapsing that probably Mew out of play. I could see him collapsing Cresselia as well, but I'm assuming both players are just gonna get rid of their Mew here. Yeah,
Oh,
then deciding to get rid of that Ninja. Mew is a decent resource when those Ionos are going to low, but uh, generally I like to see Greninja held over Mew. But I'm sure Dan has a reason, and it probably has something to do with that low Iono. And we're going to see Dan commit to Psychic Embrace, but I don't think we've seen him use Shining Arcana yet, and I just prefer, at least this is personal preference, but it's generally correct to just use all of your knowledge based abilities, or at least things that give you more information or more knowledge. You generally want to do those before either committing energies, retreating, obviously before attacking. But um, overall, this play is pretty strong for Dan. Gonna put him in the lead. And Rafal doesn't have a great way to respond to this because Rafal definitely wants to boss the Gardy EX of his own. Um, but I'm just not sure how realistic that is with his hand. And he does have the reversal of his own, so it's not looking too dire. But also the lack of that Mew could actually really come back to hurt Rafal in this particular situation.
yeah, he has a Curlia, an energy for the Greninja there,
Yeah, and
so he has ways to find what he needs here. He has everything in hand that he would, want to get rid of right now. So let's see what he hits here.
and holding that candy in hand means that he can use that Shining Arcana after that refinement. He can use it at relatively low cost, but he definitely would like. Well, actually, yeah, rare candying into the Shining Arcana is probably the correct play, which that's what he looks like he's leaning towards doing currently. We are going to see. Yeah, I like this candy coming out. Either way, it puts him in a similar situation, but this candy play is actually much better because now he can play Iono if he needs to, if he doesn't draw the Guardy EX. Um, and he still can easily hit the attack without that Guardy EX. Whereas if he evolved the refinement Curlia, he would need to find his last rare candy because the other one is on the bottom of the deck. And I don't think it even would be possible because I think he might be down all three rare candies after possibly trading away or refinementing away one the previous turn.
Super
So we see that
Rod.
Super Rod, putting back Guardy, two Ralts and a Guardy EX, which is fine. Guardy EX especially, but not being able to hit back with his own boss knockout guard EX this turn is definitely gonna be a little bit disappointing for a fall. Just gonna see him level super rod that Ralts, level ball, grab it back, and then I imagine we will probably see the Iona here after that Palpad is played, putting back probably boss and worker or research. Yeah, research makes sense. 'Cause when those late game Ionos hit, research is almost always a good draw unless you're looking for exactly boss. And then I imagine we will just see the Iono come out for a fall, which is fine. I mean, he just needs the energy to knock out the active Shining Arcana with Cresselia's second attack. So not in the most pressure to hit anything, although um he actually does really want to hit a Gardy EX because that Cresselia from Dan could come out next turn, hit the Curlia, and then Rafal, who I believe is out of candies, would not have any option to put Gardy EX into play. And actually, this reversal play I think is really strong from Rafal because reversal is going to provide that one colorless needed and Cresselia's attack cost. So that if maybe Rafal draws an Ultra Ball next turn, Ultra Ball off the Iono, it's more easily played because he doesn't have to commit that energy to the Cresselia. But like, leaving reversal in the deck is also generally quite strong. So, um, interested to see what Rafal hits here, and that's not much off the Iono.
It is possible that Rafal is on 2, but I don't know. We don't have a full list. I know Dan only has the 1, but it is possible that Rafal has 2, and he would know that. So guaranteeing the knockout here with Cresselia might be correct, especially if he does have a second one available to him later on.
Yeah. I imagine he only plays the 1 because we did see that Sky Seal Stone. But 2 is always a possibility. So a little bit interesting here because Dan has already has access to that Cresselia play on the Curlia. Which makes a response from Rafal pretty difficult. He would either need the boss that he just palpated back into the deck. I mean he has draw, concealed, Gardy, and he can get another Curlia in play. But overall, just that Cresselia this turn is gonna be gonna leave Dan in a pretty favored position, despite going back to that not even hitting that first attack. Looks like we saw Super Rod putting back a few Ralts. But in general, if Rafal is down 3 rare candy, which I believe he is, because he used he used one turn 2 that turn, and I believe he traded one away, or refinement one away. He's not gonna be able to establish another Gardy EX if Dan can go either Cresselia twice, knocking out the Curlia and the Ralts, or Boss on his uh next turn.
Yep. Dan, Iono would fall into a pretty good hand there. The Gardy EX, Professor's Research. Not much more you can ask for off of an Iono to 3.
Yeah. And that rare candy, not going to be doing too much for Dan, although there is decent odds that he has an out to a Ralts, but shuffling the deck there, it looks like he does have that Artisan. Going to be used to search out another Ralts, just leaving Dan with a pretty strong board here. And yeah, Rafal has to be pretty concerned about that Cresselia coming down onto the Curlia this turn. Just not having any genuine like attackers because the way the board is set up now, either Rafal needs that second reversal energy if he plays it, just to knock out the active Cresselia, or he needs to find one of his 2 boss in the deck, which could be substantially difficult with just one Shining Arcana and maybe a Curlia. So yeah, we're gonna see. We do need to see one more energy come into play for Dan if he would like to take that knockout with Cresselia. We're gonna see the retreat, and then just that Moonglow reverse knocking out Curlia, and putting Rafal in a pretty dire spot here, needing to draw quite a decent amount off of this low Iono, and then Just gonna see that top deck. Another
Not a
research.
great top deck there.
Research. So Rafal probably needs to start with a Shining Arcana. There also is the chance of a fourth rare candy, but that's very against general list trends. Starting with that Artisan, which is gonna shuffle his deck. I'm not sure if there really is anything to even take off the Artisan, and it looks like there's not. Um, which could actually come back to bite Rafal a little bit. Because he really, if he drew a Super Rod, he really would have liked to set up another Ralt here. Although I'm not sure that is going to matter too much. Rafal, at the very least, needs to take a knockout this turn. It doesn't have to be on Cresselia, but Cresselia puts Dan in the most difficult position because he has to boss the Curlia. Otherwise, Rafal has like a generally easy win con. And then I imagine we're just gonna see that Shining Arcana come out. And then if nothing is drawn for a fall here, he's gonna have to just play that Professor's Research. But he has quite a few outs, so he's not out of it. Hmm. Looks like we're just gonna see that research from a fall, which I'm not quite sure can ever lead to him winning. But if he does play that second reversal or that fourth candy, he's definitely still in a fine spot to take the win.
It's like a couple Ionos, Zacian
Ionos.
Z, Boss, Gardy EX, and an Energy.
So I mean, if he does have that last candy in deck, he can dig a little bit towards it, and then not in too bad of a spot. He has that Curlia too. So if he just needs to draw the reversal energy, it looks like he's counting the cards in deck. So I'm gonna assume he has an out to take the knockout this turn. I'm just not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll dig through the deck trying to find it, hoping that it's in there and not in the prizes.
And with that Curlia committed now, I'm gonna have to imagine that he does have that second reversal in the deck. Otherwise, this play can almost never win. Level ball that should be able to thin nothing. I didn't really see his out in there. If he does play two reversal, I believe the other one might be in the prize cards.
Looks like Rafal might be noticing that any path to victory here is quite difficult from this point.
Yeah,
It's
and
possible he takes a knockout and hopes to get it off the prizes, but looks like he won't be getting it this turn.
this does kind of come back to that reversal energy attachment. I'm sure Rafal was of course looking to draw a Gardy EX off that Iona the previous turn, but he kind of left himself with no option to attack. Just by putting that reversal into play, because although he did actually have the chance to Shining Arcana into an energy there, and then manually attack with Shining Arcana Gardy, but after not hitting that energy, I'm not quite sure what his out is to winning the game.
Yeah, I think Dan's starting to realize at this point that he's sitting pretty here. Might be taking the first round.
Yeah.
See what Rafal tries to do here.
Just gonna be
Yep.
that Lunar Blast, and Dan can pretty much set himself up in almost a perfect spot to win just by signing up multiple attackers, two Guardy EXs, and two Guardy EXs and a Shining Arcana. Well, okay. In order to properly set up everything to win on the next turn, he would want two Guardy EXs in play, a Shining Arcana in play, and a Zacian. Additionally, if he just finds the boss on the Curlia, there's nothing that Rafal can put in play to stop Dan from really just setting up everything.
Yep, looks like Dan's just going through the motions, setting up the board.
Probably just looking for the boss at this point. Not quite sure he found it.
No.
But regardless, he's going to be in a fine spot here. Because he actually I mean, he does have just that Cresselia again onto Rafal's only Curlia, plus an Iona to 3, which I'm fairly certain he had an Iona in hand. We're gonna see Ultra Ball, um, probably for that Shining Arcana Gardy, and then Dan can actually, well, no, he can't set up everything that I mentioned because, but he does not necessarily need to do that
Yeah,
because if
not
Rafal
sure.
were to hit the boss on the Gardy EX, then any attacker he had in play would be able to knock out whatever attacker would be knocking out the Gardy EX. So with this board, I would really, and we know what Rafal generally has access to. So with this current board, I would be very surprised to not see Dan win the game here.
Yeah, and Rafal's prizes, even if you were to get one, don't really seem to help him. There was an Ultra Ball, a Curlia, and one item that I don't quite remember what, but it wasn't a rare candy, I don't believe.
Gonna see that Iono, Dan choosing to use the Iono before using Shining Arcana. At this point, just committing basically to getting that boss. Without Greninja in play, that Psychic Attachment is completely fine. And this kind of comes back. I still think I would have liked to see Dan keep that Greninja in play, but that did open up a line for Rafal to boss it and try to stall it in the active if Dan did not have an energy. So Dan just in a dominant position here. Um,
Yeah, looks like Rafal's talking through some stuff that happened this game, and
yeah,
there he goes.
Rafal just not having any options at the end there, just gonna concede the game. So
Yep. Dan takes round one. 3 more to go tonight.
and we're back here for round 2 of the NRG Thursday Night Locals with Miraidon versus Chien-pao Excalibur. So in general, Miraidon almost always gets the first attack in this knockout or in this matchup. So that's generally gonna lead to them starting with a decent advantage, to say the least. And then it kind of comes down after that to Miraidon finding their bosses on Excalibur, and just putting on too much pressure for the Chien-pao player to reasonably respond to. But if they can't do that, a lot of the time you will see the Chien-pao player just overwhelming them, taking quicker knockouts, easier knockouts. The Miraidon player eventually will not be able to respond to, and just winning the game. So it's definitely gonna be it's definitely gonna come down quite a bit to the starts of both players. Evan really has to be hitting a turn 1 knockout here. Um, in order to really get anything going, but the game is definitely still winnable without it. It's just gonna be quite difficult to come back if Trevor ever gets like decently ahead on prizes.
Yeah, definitely a tougher matchup for Chien-pao than Trevor was probably hoping for round 2. But I know Evan was really excited to play this deck finally, and he was really talking up the Chien-pao matchup and how he was hoping to hit it. So let's see if Evan can back up the talk that he was having earlier and see what he does when it gets to his turn. Chien-pao player off to an amazing start, really. I mean,
Hmm.
double VIP with a Frigibax in hand, nothing else you can really ask for. Uh,
Yeah, imagine we're gonna see probably just like another Chien-pao and of course that Arceus. We could also see Bidoof, but he doesn't want to put himself in the position where it's too difficult to get that energy going. Yeah, the Bidoof does make sense here, but he really wants to have the option next turn at least to respond easily to a two prizer. So
yeah, I think if you're facing down Raichu, maybe you feel like you have that turn to get the Bidoof down, hope to set up a barrel combined with Arceus V-Star, and then you're basically in control. Get everything you need out of the deck. You're always grabbing energy. So let's see. Evan gonna grab 2 Pokemon here with an Ultra Ball and a Nest Ball. And
Looks
then
like we see probably
gonna see
Miraidon
Miraidon to grab the rest.
and then Greninja. I assume. So yeah, yeah, of course, Evan looking for that turn 1 attack as Miraidon almost always is. Um, not gonna be too easy. And then we see him use that Miraidon's ability, but definitely has the potential to do it here. As Miraidon always does. And he's going to use Miraidon for Flaffy Miraidon, and then use the other Miraidon just to get that Raikou V, which Raikou V actually is going to make this knockout significantly easier because with both players having a full bench going in after turn 1, that Raikou's already swinging for 220 damage, meaning that Evan doesn't need quite as many resources as he would if he had to use that Miraidon's attack.
Yep.
Just see that concealed.
It's like a boss and couldn't quite catch the other one.
Yeah, a lot of gust in this
There
opening
he
hand
goes.
for Evan.
Seal Stone.
We see that generator hitting the 1,
So
so
he'll hit the energy, and then he can always Seal Stone for the stadium.
yeah. Not sure if he has that other energy in hand.
I believe he does. It looked like he had 2 in the opening there.
2 in the opening hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Evan has to be at least content with hitting the 1 off the generator. Yeah, he's going to have that energy there. We're going to see research. So a lot of gust discarded, which is really unfortunate. I maybe would have liked to even not see all of those boss discarded.
Yeah,
I don't think he plays Pal Pad, so
yeah, definitely a greedy play there. But when we were talking earlier, he was really talking up the turn 1 Chien-pao knockout. He said once that happens, the game is basically over. So I think he was really focused on that. Just decided no matter what, I'm gonna make that happen. I don't need the boss. It's already in the active. There's no Chien-pao on the bench.
yeah,
But it would have been nice to save at least one of them.
yeah, of course, and I do really see where he's coming from. If he takes these 2 prizes on his first turn, it's gonna be very difficult for Trevor to efficiently trade in this game. Another generator hitting another energy, so generators have been pretty solid this game. Just gonna be interested to see how Trevor really responds to Evan taking 2 prizes on his first turn and not being able to respond. Looks like Evan sees all 4 generators, gonna see a whiff on the last one, but he's kind of put enough energy in play that combined with Flaffy, he should have enough attackers to just win this game. Obviously, bossing and gusting in general is gonna be a little bit difficult, but that fleet footage just seeing an extra card. But in general, yeah, Evan has to be pretty happy with this start. Seeing 2 prizes on the first turn, and Trevor basically has to respond to a low HP 2 prizer to get the knockout. So I see where Evan's coming from with this matchup just feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it is possible that Trevor can take a knockout this turn on the Raikou, but it is a little difficult. You have to use up probably your V-Star power here just to get that done.
Yeah.
And then it's still just sitting in the active for a potential Raichu knockout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what he does here.
That's definitely all true. And the other thing is well, right, so the Arceus is what's gonna have to take the knockout on the active Raikou for Trevor to really stay in this game. Because Raikou has 200, Arceus does 200. And then Trevor will have no other 2 prizes in play. But if Evan finds the Raichu response to that Arceus and sets up another Flaffy, that does leave Trevor with a pretty good opportunity to ninja the 2 Flaffies, but in general, just an energy plus a Flaffy attack next turn from Trevor is gonna, or from Evan, is gonna put him in a decent spot if he gets that Raichu knockout. Although being down 4 generators is always a uncomfortable position for the Miraidon player.
Yeah, lots of steam used that turn 1 to get the 2 prizes, but those two prizes could be the big difference here. The Chien-pao player being down, that attacker being on the back foot here, having to deal with the awkwardness of, okay, when do I retreat? When do I play a switch card? Because there was an escape rope in deck, but you can't really afford to play that here. Evan
Yeah.
will just throw up the Greninja, and that's not where you want to be. You don't want to be taking that one prize knockout. You definitely need two prizes here.
Yeah, and this Chien-pao, Evan has to be feeling pretty confident after that. I mean, he's just gonna put the one energy on the. He's gonna probably, ideally, at least for him, he's gonna attach to the Miraidon. Is gonna Flaffy another energy onto the benched Miraidon, and it's just gonna leave Trevor without a ton of options in terms of ways to get back into this game. I mean, Trevor is still drawing like very very well. And actually, he might have the switch card in hand. Or possibly the cross switchers to knock out Raichu. There's a few options that Trevor could have here.
Yeah, Trevor's not out of the game quite yet. There's still plenty of ways to get back in here and maybe even get ahead, knowing that all four generators are completely gone.
For sure. But in general, Trevor's play really has to involve. Um, Trevor's play really has to involve an Arceus ending in the active, taking two prizes on a V. And there also is the Greninja play. He can go hit the Flaffy, hit the Greninja, leave the Greninja damaged so that if he can Greninja again and Evan benches another Flaffy, which he kind of needs to at this point, he is susceptible to that second ninja play. So definitely not out of it for Trevor, but needing to hit quite a specific play this turn, to say the least.
Yep. Couldn't tell what the two cards he grabbed are, but I'm sure we'll see them played here. So it looks like the barrel was one and a superior energy retrieval was the other one.
Yeah. So not necessarily directly leading to any plays. Looks like he has one cross switcher in hand, maybe. But overall, that's not gonna lead to that.
Looks like Evan has an energy and a Flaffy in hand for next turn. So a Greninja play here would be good.
Would be reasonable for sure. We're gonna see that superior come down, discarding one of the backs, which he can do pretty safely because Evan's down so many boss. Discarding a boss of his own, which has to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm assuming he's just saying that his hand can't really afford to ditch anything else. And just gonna be the Chien-pao attack at this point. I would have honestly, I would have liked to see two energies on Arceus and two energies on Chien-pao because of course all the energies don't have to be on the Chien-pao for its attack. So
Yeah, it leaves something open if you were to hit the switch off the barrel there.
yeah, exactly. It just leaves a few more options open, which is never something that the Chien-pao player is gonna be upset about. We do see that energy come down onto Raichu. I'm not I'm not upset about that. It leaves an interesting position because if the Arceus can boss the Raichu and Evan can't respond to it this turn, then Evan is actually just probably losing the game. I don't know if he plays multiple Raichu or what his outs are to get it back, but
I believe he has two of them in deck.
two in deck. So
yeah, not sure if one is prized or not.
so you're gonna see that nest ball come down. Probably grabbing another Flaffy, but that does leave a ninja play open to Trevor, which he can pretty reasonably afford to do just because Evan's down almost all of his bosses. So a ninja play, if he were to bench that other Flaffy, can leave, and in combination with maybe an Iono if Trevor can draw it. Ionoing Evan down to two, Greninja knocking out those two. And it looks like he's actually just gonna fail that nest ball, which I actually think is a pretty good decision. There's no good line for Trevor next turn that involves knocking out that Flaffy. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty. No, he's still gonna
Just
get it.
wanted to thin the deck, maybe. Maybe one was prized, and I'm not too sure. But
Has that other Raichu. But if Trevor has that Luminion in hand, so if he plays an Iono and has the resources in hand to go for that Ninja onto the two Flaffies plus Iono, Trevor actually has to be pretty happy with the position that he's in.
yeah, we see Luminion in hand for Trevor, so that
Luminion
Iono
plus
play
Superior,
is
so
online.
if the Iono is in the deck, that play is honestly pretty scary for Evan. Um, see a few switch cards used. Um, and I'm just gonna assume that is to thin. With Beach Court, this should be a very easy promotion for Trevor. It should always be there. Greninja, yeah. Um, but not all Chien-pao lists are currently playing that Iono, but if he has it, just that Greninja attack plus Iono could put Evan on in a really difficult position, to say the least.
Yep. Evan threatening a big knockout next turn with the Raichu, but the issue is with no generators, if this Miraidon goes down,
And
yeah,
additionally,
it's a tough spot to be in.
if
Or if their Greninja even stays out there.
yeah, exactly. It looks like the Greninja's. I think the Greninja always has to stay out there, regardless of the Iono. But oh, is that just no? That's a superior energy retrieval. Looks a little bit like Iono. Just gonna see that retrieval played though. If there is however, a Iono here, that's gonna require quite a lot of resources from Evan. That Miraidon really has no great way to cycle towards or draw towards. He does have that Greninja in play, but off of Iono, he would have to hit. What even would it be? It would be. I mean, just the energy and the boss, right? So actually, not that much, but he would have to draw his last boss without having played very many. I see that
Trevor.
Luminion, which I imagine will be for that Iono if it's in deck. Then there
There
it
is at
is.
least one.
Yep, there it is. So this is quite worrying for Evan. He does just need that one energy and the boss, but not gonna have great odds for it. And this kind of comes back to when Evan benched that second Flaffy. It's unlikely that he was gonna get any use out of it anyway. So it doesn't quite seem like that was the correct play because it opened up this really good line for Trevor, who otherwise didn't really have a great line.
Yep, I agree. It's a little bit of an overbench there. Um, maybe maybe he thought that this play wouldn't be possible, but with the Chien-pao, getting 3 energy is very easy, especially later in the game.
hmm Yeah, I have to imagine he thought about this play and just maybe I'm gonna imagine he didn't play around the Iono, because plenty of Chiampalis have cut the Iono, so I can definitely see where he would have thought he's just overall fine, but we're gonna see what he has this turn. He also has the opportunity to just retreat into the Greninja. Um, retreat into that Greninja and looks like the boss isn't dead. Retreat into the Greninja and try to at least stall one more turn, but with the Chien-pao player having a big hand, Bibarel, full board setup, it's unlikely that they're not able to find any gust for the next turn. And with that boss in the deck, it's gonna require a really specific draw from Evan to get anything this turn.
Yeah, looks like he has an energy,
Does have that concealed, and
and he has a switch
he
card
has a switch card.
and an
So
energy to
so it
attach.
looks like he's gonna have the opportunity to fleet-footed into exactly the boss's orders and win the game. But otherwise, there's not really a winning line besides hitting that boss.
Might not be in deck. Kevin's shaking his head.
No, I'm pretty sure it was. Um, I'm not quite sure what this Ultra Ball is for because he did need that energy to attack with. He needed that energy, that switch card, and then would win the game with that draw of the boss. Research is good, but um Trevor really not needing much on this next turn. Gonna take the knockout on the ninja, so he's not gonna have like total draw, but just gonna see that knockout here. Promotion of the Frigibax makes sense with the beach court in play, and one Irida will be enough,
So there's the nest ball.
or just the nest
See
ball.
a Chien-pao come out.
Chien-pao, and then if he has energy to use Shivery Chill, that'll be just about enough for Trevor to win this game. Not seeing the immediate retreat, but the
There's
Irida,
the Irida, yep.
with the Irida there, as long as there's any retrieval left, and I think I saw 2 energy anyways, just gonna be enough.
Evan's scooping it up. Realizes that that was over there.
Yeah, realizing that just that Irida is gonna be enough for with that retrieval. That's enough for Trevor to knock out anything on Evan's board. Yeah, I imagine Evan is probably regretting that bench of the Flaffy there because it really opened up Trevor's best line. But overall, having to ditch all of those bosses turn 1 definitely put Evan in a precarious position because he did start with that knockout on the Chien-pao on his first turn, but without the ability to chase 2 prizers, it was always going to be a little bit difficult to close out that game.
Yeah. When you use all your resources turn 1, you can be off to a great start, but
Alright, let's go to our backup.
We're going to go to our backup game, which is another Gardy mirror, but this one's pretty far along in terms of the board state. Looks like we have Dan ahead in this game, but Ale does have quite a strong board. Looks like it's Dan's turn currently.
And the screen went dark. Why?
Be right. And
there we go.
looks like it's Dan's turn currently, looking to go for a Cresselia. Or not? No, sorry, it's Ale's turn currently, looking to go for probably his own Cresselia attack here on that Ralt. Or just a Lunar Blast.
Looking for the knockout here, I guess.
Just a Lunar Blast on the active makes sense as well.
It went back a little bit.
It did go.
We just went back, yeah.
Sorry, a little bit further back than when we started. So this is actually still Ale's turn. Right before we saw footage after I had taken this knockout and Dan had already started his turn. But all we're just gonna see is that Lunar Blast on the active Cresselia, and just to knock out Dan's own Cresselia, and for Ale to take his first prize of the game. Although he is a little bit behind already.
Yeah. We can see it looks like the reversal energy is in Dan's hand. There is a temple in play.
And regardless, that reversal not going to be doing too much with him being up 2 prizes.
Just a little bit of a dead card in his hand.
Yeah. Looks like Dan also does have quite a small hand from the looks of it. And just kind of thinking about that might not necessarily be true, but not as big of a hand as we're used to seeing with Gardy. Just kind of thinking like what he has to sequence, what he has to accomplish this turn. And he really has to be pretty happy with his board. 2 Shining Arcanas in play. If we can get another Curlia here, has to be pretty happy with that. See the level ball. grabbing that. He's looks like he isn't quite sure. He was failing that in a level ball and playing the super rod after. So definitely probably just a slight mishap, forgetting that Curlia is in the discard, wanting to grab it, and then realizing it's not there, so I'll have to play this super rod. So he's gonna start with that Shining Arcana. That reversal energy is definitely a decent draw. He probably wants to Iono this turn, but also drawing that worker gives him the option to not Iono, and put himself down to a smaller hand. Although Iono still will see more cards, than he would have with Curlia. Or sorry, not with worker, and he's definitely just looking to draw that
So he opts for a boss onto a
boss
Shining
on a Shining
Arcana.
Arcana Gardevoir. Definitely gonna limit all his draw here. But Dan probably just looking for that. At least after this turn, he'll be one turn away from just being able to look for that boss on one of Ollie's two oh no, sorry, that's not two Gardy EXs, but that is one Gardy EX and then two Ralts on the bench. So Ollie, regardless, Ollie's still not necessarily maintaining a lot of draw at this point in time, but he has enough that he could possibly hit the well, that would if he has Curlias in hand or at least an energy for concealed, then he still has the possibility of hitting that boss knockout on Gardy EX this turn, but that would probably be quite unlikely.
Can't quite tell how much energy
I think that was
Ollie had.
oh wait. I think just
Opting-
has the 3 on the active. Dan has also the 3 on the active, and then it looks like Dan has 5 energy in the
5,
discard.
yeah.
Just gonna say that Iono putting Dan to pretty low. Although Dan still has quite a decent amount of draw, regardless of any knockouts that were to happen to his board.
Looks like maybe not the best Iono for him.
Yeah, I mean
But
one
there was a
Curly.
Curlia, so the hand isn't totally dead.
Yep. Gonna see that an Iono hit the bin, and not sure what the rest of Ollie's hand contains. We also have not seen Dan's hand, but
Dan had at least a research.
at least okay.
It looked like there might have been another Iono.
There's another Curlia,
Ollie's.
which is definitely pretty decent for Ollie. Just letting him discard that candy because very unlikely that he'll even get the chance to use it. If he has 3 energies in the disc, or just 2, sorry, then he has the knockout on that 60 HP Ralt. Which I know he has at least 1, or I'm fairly certain he has at least 1. So if he has that 2, then he has that knockout on the memory skip Ralts. Looks like he's gonna go for the retreat. Maybe just taking the knockout with that Gardy EX. Leaving himself a little bit susceptible to just a Zacian knockout, which
Yeah, it looked like Dan had the Zacian in hand as well.
yeah, so that's gonna be a little bit worrying for Ale. Allowing Dan to just get down to 1 prize, have multiple attackers in play. Never something you'd love to see in the Guardy mirror. These late game Guardy attacks when both players have built up their board, built up their discard are always going to be a little bit worrying for the player on the receiving end, or for the player that is doing their own attack with the Guardy when 2 prize swings are so important in this matchup. So giving your opponent the ability to play a draw supporter and a research, or sorry, a draw supporter and take a big knockout on a 2-prizer is always a little bit worrying.
Yeah. So we see the Zacian come down, see the research,
Yeah. So
saving the
pretty
Curlia for
strong
after
hand
the
from Dan with
research.
that Curlia, Zacian, and the research. Just naturally.
Looks like a boss was gotten off of that research for next turn. Not that it will really matter too much. But
So Dan has to have, I believe, um, so he has to hit 270. So that's just 7 energy on with Zacian, and I believe he already has that. So Dan in yet another very strong position. There's really not much that he needs because he either keeps his completely powered up Zacian in play, or he keeps his Gardy EX in play, essentially. So not a ton of opportunities for Dan to lose this game, although next turn Ollie does have the opportunity to go just Gardy EX, attach, put only 2 energies on it so that it still has 270. Although that is still a pretty clean knockout for Gardy to hit in general, but it's not going to be necessarily easy, especially with an Iona to 1, for Dan to really hit that response on the Gardy EX. And then with Ollie having Iona himself to 4, if he has it, he still would have plenty of opportunity to find that boss and then find his own Zacian to boss Dan's. So honestly, this matchup's still pretty. At least this game is still pretty winnable for Ale. But just will be interesting to see if Ale can respond with an Iono next turn and to see if that can really brick Dan. Although, regardless, Dan is going to be keeping that Curlia and that Shining Arcana in play. So,
yep. Even with an Iona to 1, Dan will be able to get something going next turn.
that's 2 energy there. So, Dan just paying that retreat cost and still going to have plenty of energy to hit that 7 energy knockout on the active. 270 plus 60, that is knockout. And with that, just going to see. I would like to see actually that collapse come down from Dan just to thin it out of his hand, but not gonna end up mattering too much. And actually, does he have that? Is that Ralts on the bench actually?
Yeah, I believe that is a benched Ralts.
Okay. In that case, then the collapse doesn't make any sense. But
Looks like a Greninja there. Let's see what's in hand. Looks like maybe in Gardy EX is in hand.
and just going back to Ole's last turn, I believe he did refinement away an Iono. With that refinement away of the Iono, it might be a little bit difficult for him to actually find the Iono that he needs to play this turn.
A little bit of a small deck though.
So yeah, his deck is pretty thin, and if he puts back 2 Ionos here, the overwhelming chances that he draws it. Looks like he's just putting back those 2 Ionos. Only really needs an Iono and a boss in his next 2 turns to close out this game, so pretty decent odds of that at least. Going to see the Ultra Ball on, I believe, Rare Candy and Gardy. There's that Shining Arcana. So, I believe at this point he is guaranteed that Iono. I hope that he has that last Gardy EX in hand, because otherwise I'm not really sure if he has everything he needs. Although, I mean, he still has. No, because he has to take this knockout with Gardy EX. Yeah, I think that is it on the edge of the hand. It's
Yeah,
that
looks like-
alternate R.
Yep.
I
Just trading away the worker there.
trading away the work. Okay. Looks like he still doesn't quite have it. No, I think I did see that Iono in hand.
Yeah, Iono was in hand. Can't really dig too deep though, even though you're putting cards back.
So it
You're
looks like
drawing
Ale is going to also
4.
be turn 0 here. So I think we can see one more trade. Or maybe not though. Maybe he would run out of cards
It
at
looks like
that
those
point.
might be the last. Oh, okay.
So we're gonna see Shining
At least
Arcana.
one more in deck.
Well, if he had the opportunity to, I would have liked to see the trade and then play the Iono and hold the Shining Arcana for the other side of the Iono. But if he's putting back Ralts, Gardy. Yeah, and with that Super Rod, there wasn't actually a big likelihood of him getting decked out regardless. So I think I would have liked to see that trade and then hold of the Shining Arcana, but we will see what Dan draws, at least on the other side. And with 4 prizes left, he's essentially handpicking his Iono. Or sorry, 4 prizes left, 4 cards in deck. Looks like we are gonna see that next trade. Not sure he has too many good resources to be even trading away here, but there's that reversal, which is gonna be pretty good for the next turn.
And the Iono.
But Dan's really not going to be needing much. With that Gardy going down to 270, that means he needs 1 attachment from hand just to lock up this game with that Shining Arcana's attack. And he has so many cards to draw it that the chances of Ale winning this game are just very low because Boss isn't out. 1 energy, he did attach that reversal, but that's not really going to affect any of the math. But Boss isn't out. Not reversal energy, but any energy isn't out, and a way to recycle Zacian is also an out. So Ale definitely will have, or Den will almost certainly have the cards necessary to respond.
Yeah. Deck's a bit big, so it might take him a little digging to
Yeah,
find it.
I mean,
It will be in deck.
So
There's a fog crystal, it looks like.
There is a fog crystal in hand. Choosing to play that Shining Arcana, or use that Shining Arcana. Trade away that Battle Pass. Dan's shaking his head, but he still has more draw, and he needs so little. Level Ball.
Probably just checking the deck here, seeing what he needs to get.
Or just thinning if he doesn't think he has it quite yet. And I mean, there is the chance that he doesn't have any Psychics left in the deck, and at that point, holding the Fog Crystal, trying to draw a Super Rod, that just gives you 1 more out. But still interesting to see what Dan ends up doing here. And he's going to use that last refinement. Finds Gardy. Yeah. Looks like he whiffed. He does still have concealed cards on that reversal energy. So would really like to see him use that. But looks like he's just going to play an Iono to 1. So this really needs to be that 1 energy. Because that at this point that is his only out, and it is not. Iono's Ale to 2, but Ale has pretty decent odds. But that Cresselia should be enough. But wait, that Ralt. Okay, I think the Curlia was in the active, but that Ralts did just evolve this turn. But there was a Curlia in the active, so he could have just evolved that one, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Or is that never mind? Is that the Curlia that's? No, because that was the Curlia. No, actually, no. I think that was not the one that evolved, but it wouldn't change anything regardless. So.
Yeah. Well, the next round's up. We'll be right back.
So we'll be right back with the next round. We're back here for round 3 of NRG Locals with a lost Tina mirror.
Yep. We got Reno and Tim. Both are 1-1, looking to make it 2-1 and stay in prizing for tonight.
Mhm.
And personally, I think it's an interesting mirror match.
Yeah, I actually haven't played too much of, or even seen too much of this mirror match. Reno looks to have a pretty decent opening. Tim, not quite as much, but both opening comfy, so both have plenty of things that could happen for them. Looks like Reno going first.
Going first, VIP in hand.
Top deck of that chorus, meaning his hand's definitely going to be pretty good next turn. Having Battle Pass plus Jet Energy, always strong in this matchup.
Yeah, Reno will be making a lot of decisions this turn, setting up the future of this game here, at least for his side.
So we're just going to see him prize checking his energy.
Looks like Greninja might be prized.
Oh,
no, there it
Greninja
is.
Right there. Just really checking to see,
Yeah.
just bringing all those energies to the front, making sure that he can make the most educated decision possible off of these flower selectings, especially when it comes to lost winning energy, because that's always a little bit worrying. So off this battle pass, I imagine we'll see probably Greninja and Comfy.
There's
but
also a nest ball in hand.
yeah,
so
there is an S-Ball in hand, and there isn't any energy in hand. So Reno also could decide to go for 2 Comfies here, but it looks like just gonna be that Greninja and Comfy, like I thought. And then probably hoping to draw an energy at least, so that he can just see more cards with that conceal.
yeah, I think you just save the nest ball. I don't think you really
Yeah, nothing to really
need to play
prioritize
it
off
right
the nest
now.
ball, but he
You
is gonna
can,
go there.
yeah, it's never a bad thing to play it here, but
Imagine we'll see Cram. Yep, there's that Cram being lined up, because that's most likely going to be the turn 2 attacker.
Yep.
Or that other Comfy, which I actually am a pretty big fan of getting that third Comfy with that Jet Energy in hand. That's going to enable the Comfy into the active and the retreat to that
retreat
third
into
one.
the third one.
So
yeah.
guaranteeing 3 Lawsons here is never a bad thing.
I'm glad this deck is making a resurgence in play. I always like the decks where you have to really have the knowledge to play it, and you can't just go on autopilot the entire time.
I believe that's a Battle Pass and a Super Rod, which should be
Yeah.
pretty easy loss under the Battle Pass, considering Reno's board is almost fully set up. Just gonna have that jet. Yep, that Jet Energy. Bring the Comfy into the active. Flower selecting.
Chorus and maybe a Sableye?
Well, gonna pick to loss on that Chorus. Sableye is very important in this matchup. In any loss on mirror, essentially. So does make sense.
It's not a great one there.
Gates
Grass
aren't
energy and gates.
Gates aren't too important, and he does really want to see those cards with concealed. So I can definitely see that. Yeah, just see that gate hitting the Lawson. He only really needs maybe 2 gates at the most. Not gonna choose not to use that concealed.
Tim with the battle VIP pass.
I think that was also off the top, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with that. Tim kind of wants a lot, which Tina doesn't necessarily hit as easy as maybe like a Turbo Lawson might, but if he can see that chorus, which is of course what he's looking for, that's really gonna help him hit the plays he needs to, because he wants Manaphy here, he wants that Cram. He doesn't really want a Tina on the bench, because that would allow Reno to possibly maybe go for that board lock, where he just has no Sableye in play. If Reno can avoid putting any 2 prizers in play, then Reno gets to just take a big lead. But it will be interesting to see what Tim is able to draw into here. So just gonna see that discard of the Psychic. There is that Chorus, I think. Maybe not if he's choosing to use selecting first though.
So there was a Chorus.
So I'm
Maybe just opting to get
yeah, I
another
think he's
card.
probably just not quite knowing the sequencing, where you almost always want to use that chorus before using any flower selectings, because that's gonna make the best decision. Choosing to use that switch card too. He had that jet energy in hand, so a little bit surprising, because switch card is also quite a useful resource. Looks like he drew a judge there, which could definitely be interesting here, and maybe gives a reason why he would want to hold that chorus. But I would really have liked to see this chorus happen before those flower selectings were used. A little bit of a difficult decision here. Normally, like the nest ball would be the first thing to go, but he really needs more like he wants Cram, he wants Manaphy if he plays it.
Yeah, I think the Roxanne can probably go here pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Especially with that judge, that's maybe giving him another option. Before he might use the Roxanne, and the judge is definitely pretty interesting. Um, it definitely can hurt, especially like other Lost Box decks. Although Tina isn't necessarily just Lost Box, but it definitely has some uses in this mirror, and especially when Lost Box maybe plays around Roxanne, you can really reset their big hand later in the game with that judge. So definitely a pretty interesting inclusion.
Yeah, looks like we're going for a cram play here.
Hmm.
Trying to get a prize. This is where the jet energy would have come in handy to save the switch card.
Save that switch card, provides the retreat that he might end up just using it for anyways. So the Cram, I mean, he could jet, if he's gonna use the jet energy, it should be on the Cram, because it's not a recoverable energy, and it is just something that
There is
um
a rope, but I'm not sure you want to play that yet.
so he is using that jet energy correctly, but overall I would have just personally preferred that jet energy be used on the Comfy and then just retreated into the Cram to just kind of save like that one extra resource there. And Reno's looking to have a pretty good turn too, not very far off from hitting that ninja play onto those two Comfies, which is just gonna leave Tim with like not the best board.
So Reno did draw into his own Manaphy
He
here.
also drew into that Manaphy as well. So I and this could, it could be a little bit difficult to hit the gate play that he's totally looking for. But in general, it shouldn't be too far out of reach.
Yeah, looks to be not the most difficult.
Not the most
Chorus
difficult
here.
chorus, but also not the strongest. Definitely a few
Yeah.
things that he would have much rather drawn, because he really wants to be able to punish Tim's lack of Manaphy this turn. Maybe Tim doesn't play the Manaphy at all, in which case he still has time to do that. But
We did see it in Tim's deck, I believe.
we saw, if we
as
saw
he
the
was
Manaphy,
searching. Yeah, I believe I saw a Manaphy there.
yeah. So
So Reno could go for the double comfy knockout and be sitting a little better this game.
yeah,
And
he
it
ideally
looks like that might be what he's going for here.
well, yeah, I think that's always what he's going for, but just with Tina, I'm not sure if he quite has access to that play. Still has selectings, but he's really gonna need switch cards this turn, which I'm not sure he has.
Looks like a Nest Ball and a Giratina V-Star.
And I'm imagining we're gonna keep the nest ball, because at least the nest ball can get a cram attack if that's what he has to settle for. And I don't think he had another nest ball on him. Yeah,
Let's
I'm not
see.
seeing any switch cards, despite
No, I'm not seeing him either.
the size of his hand. So it looks like we might just see that cram
Yeah,
bench.
three switch cards in deck.
Yeah, looks like we might just see that cram hit the bench, that Manaphy hit the bench, and just a knockout of his own, which at this point in the game is pretty fine. It's not very likely that Tim hits much in terms of like a significant, like a save. It's very unlikely it's a Sableye. and other like any other significant attacks are pretty difficult at this point. I would like to probably see if Reno has another V Star. I probably would like to see a Tina V also hit the bench, but this does benching the Tina here does leave Reno pretty susceptible to that board lock play. So it's probably not correct. It's just that Tim doesn't necessarily have any great attacks next turn that he can use like pretty cleanly, although he can use that shred on Giratina V uh pretty cleanly.
Shred is very powerful, especially in this matchup with a bunch of little HP Pokemon running around everywhere. And
It looks like Tim does actually play a second Cram. Some of what I was talking about was him not having an easy follow-up attack just because he would have to play Super Rod, he would have to have Nest Ball, and he already wants to Nest Ball for that Manaphy ideally. So that second Crem is actually going to give him a pretty decent option here if he elects to keep it. But
looks like he's getting rid of
Gate and Path, which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, especially with the Manaphy on board here.
I think the Chorus, the Cram, and that Jet Energy are all pretty good resources, at least for this turn. Especially when he really would like to hit. There is that Manaphy.
There is the Manaphy.
So Reno is probably gonna get that first well, he's a little bit far from that first Sableye, however, without having used a second Comfy on his last turn. So hitting that Sableye next turn, which Reno really has to, is not gonna be very easy.
Yeah, Reno does have Colress in hand, making it a little easier, but still
We're gonna
not
have to see.
ideal.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see 3 Comfy uses next turn at the minimum. So just not super high odds, but we really do have to see that attack come down. I also, this is another thing I would have liked to see, that concealed cards from Tim come out a decent amount earlier in that turn. Okay, so this actually does open up another line for Reno, because they are on even prizes. If Reno were to, well, it's not great still, but Reno does now have the option to, if he can, especially if he can get this next Sableye, so that he doesn't have to just Ninja the active for 90. A Sableye here, could give Reno the bench lock that he, just a bench lock, without any Sableyes in play for Tim, no Vs for Tim to boss. In which case, Reno has 5 1-prizers, and Tim has already burned a switch card as a resource. So the Sableye could reasonably board lock Tim and win the game here. So just that is just a little bit of a play that Reno possibly can go for, which I don't think he's too far off if he can see some switch cards. Because he just needs that bench of a Comfy, 3 Comfy usages, and then that Sableye attack. So hopefully he sees that line, because that at this point that is a winning line.
So he did draw the switch card.
So there is a switch card. Yep, there's a Comfy in hand.
So he's got most of what he needs already. Just needs to play it out, hit a couple cards.
Putting back that Cram is not the best sign in terms of him going for that board lock line. But he could also just want that energy back, because it's a very reasonable draw, just to be able to use that concealed, see more cards, and hopefully get all those pieces if he is going for the Sableye line that he needs. But yeah, if he were to go Sableye here, 6/6 on the 6/6 on Comfy Manaphy, then Sableye again, then Sableye again, then Tim would have had to play. So Tim has 4 prizes left, so that would mean that Reno has this turn plus 3 more turns to put enough Sableye damage in play to win the game, and 3 Sableyes is almost enough to guarantee having enough damage in play. Almost enough, I believe. So it might be a little bit short. This should be an easy chorus, putting that nest ball and that battle pass away. He could, or that energy also could hit the bin, but um, the nest ball is definitely a reasonable keep.
I think he might be saving the nest ball. It appears he has another super rod in hand,
Mm-hmm.
so that if one Sableye goes down, he can just grab it right away.
Yeah, or could just be saving that out to the Cramorant that we did see him put back. So, believe he has all the pieces in hand to Sableye this turn, but it looks like he might just be deciding against that, trying to win the game with other cards. Maybe he can Roxanne next turn, and then put some pressure on Tim. It's definitely a line. But
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a big fan of the, well, I'll let him knock me out and I'll Roxanne,
yeah,
as opposed to trying to just go for it. But
mhm. Yeah, like the Sableye, he gets so between Tim's one prizers, um, they have 450 health. So Tim would have to play 2 switch cards for Reno to not win with 4 Sableye attacks, which is pretty reasonable. 4 Sableye attacks is pretty reasonable for him to hit. So I see where Reno also might be coming from, but he doesn't have to go completely for the board lock. If he puts enough damage in play, he can um use 2 Sableyes, then take the knockouts, and then have 2 Sableyes in play after that. Or have a Sableye in play like if he were to get Roxanne by Tim himself. Oh, maybe. Oh, okay. It looks like he is still going. Okay, never mind. I think
looks like he
he
has
had.
enough.
Yeah, it looks like he
in there.
has enough. I guess he had 6 after the last turn. 2 turns of. Oh yeah, he did have 6 because of that 3 Comfies on the first turn. 1 Comfy plus Chorus, so that's 6, and then the 2 Comfies plus Chorus that puts him at 10. So
Yeah.
I would really like to see him go for that board lock line. I also wouldn't. Ideally, the Cramorant doesn't go in play. But the knockout on the Cramorant is pretty worrying. But if he were to go for that board lock line, ideally the Cramorant does not come into play for Reno himself.
Yeah, looks like Tim will be able to get his own chorus.
Yeah.
And into Sableye here.
Just not a big fan of knocking out the Cram there, just because it doesn't really lead to any bigger turns in the future. Usually we would want to see maybe knockout, if he's going to take a knockout Manaphy, 5 on Comfy.
Yeah, open up the Greninja play.
Yeah, open up a Ninja play, open up a multi-prize turn with Sableye if Tim doesn't respond. But just going to see that knockout on the Cram, which is pretty mediocre. Taking up so much of Sableye's attack, only putting 1 more damage counter in play. And Reno still has the capabilities to play around Roxanne, but by opening up a bench spot for that Sableye, Tim has plenty of lines to take multi-prize turns himself. He also now has the ability to play around Reno's Roxanne, if he chooses to do that. So, just not the biggest fan overall of that Cram knockout.
Let's see, Super Rod and Comfy. Pretty easy choice.
Yeah. Not going to need those Comfies too much at this point of the game. With 9 in the lost zone, he can use that escape rope, attach an energy to retreat, and then play that judge if he maybe wants to this turn, which could really.
I believe he attached to the Sableye or the
I
Giratina.
no, the gate. The gate was.
Oh, with the gate.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a few interesting lines. Escape rope almost always has to be played here. Boss isn't bad necessarily, but not gonna do too much here. We could see a few things get promoted, but overall, I would like to see Reno just promote a Comfy here. Um, it's very difficult to get punished in that sense. Maybe Manaphy as well. But I don't like this Cram promotion. Just gonna see the Shred
To the
line from
boss.
Tim. A little bit
I'm
confused.
not. Yeah, I'm not.
When Sableye could have taken the knock on its own. I mean, Reno doesn't have a good response on board to this Tina, but Reno still getting the first Sableye here is gonna be, or he already got the first Sableye, but the first like very meaningful Sableye here is gonna put him still in a decent chance to win with just that Shred. Tim does win essentially in 2 turns, whereas Reno is still a little more than that. Still 3 turns himself away from winning. But
Super out in VIP off that Greninja.
mhm. To that gear because I don't think he quite has that next chorus in hand. Or this could also be looking for Roxanne. Few options here.
Here's the Roxanne.
So if Reno can still find that next Sableye knocking out Tim's own Sableye, Reno still has a decent chance because Tim really has to be Sableyeing next turn. I would have really liked to see the Sableye come down this turn from Tim. I think overall, he's played this game pretty well. Maybe not that Tina bench in the first place, but I would have really liked to see that Sableye and then not put himself in Roxanne range, making Reno's life very difficult to like actually stage a comeback. But choosing to go into that Roxanne range, and just with using Tina's attack, definitely leaves Reno with a good opportunity to come back into this game.
Bought Reno another turn, probably.
And at the very least, it bought Reno a winning line now with that playing the Roxanne, finding that Sableye, um, not playing into the possibility of Tim's second Roxanne. Well, no, because he has to take the knockout on the Sableye. So he is going to have to play into Tim's own Roxanne if he plays a second copy. But overall, Reno, if he can get, I'm not sure what his resources are looking like, but if he can attack with Sableye 3 more times this game, or even if he knocks out, no, it should ideally be 3 more times, but we will see if that is a possibility. Because Reno is really hoping for Roxanne into that Sableye attack, and then probably hoping for that 40 damage extra going on the Manaphy. Sableye energy, but the energy he should have plenty
Energy
of.
is fine. He also has
The
the
energy
gates in
really
hand.
shouldn't be an issue. Getting that Sableye is a little bit more important. I could see him just playing the gate here. He only really needs to save 1 for a Greninja attack. So yeah, I do like the playing of that gate here. Probably gonna see like grass psychic or waters, but I would like to see actually grass
Probably grass. Right?
psychic.
You're not attacking with Giratina this game
Yeah,
anymore, so.
Tina is essentially dead, while Ninja still could be an important attack to close out the game. The water there is fine too if he just has the water to attach and retreat from hand, which looks like he does. Yeah. So I still think I would have preferred to see, if he's just gonna retreat that energy anyways, I would have liked to see the grass get retreated and the water get attached from hand. But regardless, this is still a pretty decent line from Reno. He's really hoping to draw into the cards necessary for that next Sableye off this Roxanne. But
Seems to be some sort of confusion.
yeah.
Oh, maybe just forgetting between Judge, Iono, the old Marnie, just how Roxanne works.
Yep. Or maybe making sure that maybe just like briefly thinking that maybe that Roxanne can't be played when the opponent's at 3, only at 2, but no, Roxanne does say when your opponent has 3 prizes or less. So Reno is actually in a decent spot if he takes the knockout on that Sableye. He also has the ability to focus the Manaphy this turn because Tim is only at that 9 in the loss zone, so he'll still need another way to loss zone something. But I think loss zoning the Sableye is the safer play the majority of the time. Not loss zoning, sorry. Sablying the Sableye. Yeah, Reno with a pretty strong hand to follow up. Pretty close to winning this game in all honesty. I really don't like the knockout. Looking at Tim's hand, it's not necessarily gonna punish him, but I really would have preferred to see that knockout happen this turn on the Sableye.
I agree. I think it forces Tim to use a little more of his resources to really get that Sableye back in order to use that as a win condition for the game. Whereas the Manaphy opens up the Greninja play, but the Greninja play is also not your ideal line right now, I
Well,
don't think.
If Tim can like retreat into Comfy and then hit Chorus, which I don't think he's gonna go for that line. So it looks like this line is gonna be fine for Reno, but the 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 issue at the end of the like the issue that could have arose for Reno here is that Ninja next turn doesn't win him the game, but a Ninja for a Sableye at least for this turn for Tim could have set up the win on the next turn for him. So ideally just would have liked to see all of those things happen, but this turn as well, I would have liked to see just the Sableye putting. Well, I guess it depends how likely Reno thinks he'll be able to Sableye again after if he were to use the Sableye in his hand this turn. But with 2 gates, Super Rod, I would have liked to just seen the 6/6 on Comfy and Sableye, which there shouldn't be any way for Tim to play around and then just closing out the game with a Sableye of his own. But that play does put him a little bit more susceptible to Roxanne. So looks like Tim here is just gonna knock out that clean Comfy and that Sableye. So this play is also gonna end up being fine. But the Sableye here also could have been interesting because the only reason is that Tim had the opportunity after this Ninja, if he had the perfect cards, would be to Sableye and Hawlucha is the only thing. But I can understand not playing around the Hawlucha in this particular instance. But there always would be the chance of Tim just having that Hawlucha and winning the game from it.
Yep. Probably a smaller chance.
Yeah.
These players play each other every week, and they all kind of know. But at a bigger event, I agree. The Hawlucha threat is always that looming thing.
I actually would like
I
to
would've-
see. I would like to see the knockouts happen on the Comfies, just because there is a line if Reno were to get. I actually don't. I'm not sure there actually is a line. Because he has that Cram on bench, so even Roxanne Sableye doesn't win the game for Tim because then Reno just has Cram. Looks like Reno just has the boss of his own, bringing up that Comfy and gonna win the game. I think there's a few things that both players could have probably done better there. But I do think that Reno really made it count in those late turns where he was using Sableye, he was using Ninja, taking multi-prize turns, and Tim was basically just shredding every turn. So I think there were a few attacks a few damage placements, a few attacks that those players probably would have liked to take back watching this game. But in general, I think both players played pretty well. But that Roxanne plus Sableye without 10 in the loss on for Tim was just enough to set up Reno to win the game.
Yep. That's what happens when you don't hit 10. Just makes your game plan just that much harder. You suddenly don't have access to all of your tools, and that's unfortunately what happened to Tim there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about our weekly schedule. It's on screen. Just
So, here at NRG, we don't just play Pokemon. We do play other things as well. On Monday nights, we got EDH for the Magic players. We also have Digimon. Come on down for that. Good group of people here. Very active scene. Bound to be a great time. On Tuesdays, we got Pioneer. We also have One Piece. I've not personally played One Piece, but I know a lot of people here do, and it seems like a really good time. So maybe if you come down on Tuesday, you'll be able to meet me, and maybe we'll play some One Piece together. Wednesday night, of course, we have to have Modern. What a great format for Magic. Definitely be here for that. Very competitive group, but also a very nice group of people. Great time. On Thursdays, we of course have Pokemon. That's why you're here watching the stream right now. But if you're not a Pokemon player, don't worry. There's always a couple people here playing EDH. Always pods firing off. Love talking to them between rounds, and they always seem like they're having a blast. Tomorrow, Friday nights, we have Legacy at 6:30. We also have One Piece at 6:30. So if you're a Magic player or One Piece player, Friday nights, this is the place to be. I can assure you that much. And on Saturday, we have another event of Digimon. Again, such a great group of people. If you've played Digimon, if you just want to check it out, this is definitely the place to do that. So I hope to see you all at some of these events, and
we'll be right back.
we'll be right back for round 4.
And we're back here with round 4 of the NRG Thursday Night Locals with a Turbo Lost Box versus Giratina matchup. I know, well, after me and Justin's testing, like, we definitely think this is at the very least slightly favored for the Lost Box player. But and going second here for Justin is going to be an even slightly bigger advantage, just because Turbo Lost Box wants to just hit that first cram. And if Justin can avoid benching any V Pokemon, so basically if he can avoid using that Force Seal Stone and still hit the cram attack, which he doesn't quite have, that's he's definitely gonna be happy with that. He can afford to bench the V, but usually when this matchup fully plays out, it kind of comes down to Lost Box being ahead but losing just because Tina has that boss play on that V that Lost Box needs to have in play.
Yep. And Justin's no stranger to that turn 1 cram play. He actually did it to me twice in 2 different weeks. I started just Frigibax, had no way to get any other Pokemon, and he just went for it, paid off each time. So I doubt he'll be overextending too much here now that Reno has a bench. But getting it off is still a great way to start this off, especially if that Manaphy ends up a little stuck in the active there.
Yeah, and the turn 1 cram doesn't really have anything to. It's not impactful just because you're taking that knockout. Like, it can be removing something from their board that they might want is good, but it's more just getting that prize ahead. So that and it just getting to that 4 in the lost zone so that you can begin to play around the Roxanne from the Lost Box player or from the Tina player, and kind of just overwhelm your advantage, especially if you get that cram off.
So it looks like the Manaphy won't be stuck. Couple switch cards, couple energy in Reno's hand here.
Yep. Yep. Always good to start with that escape rope, since switch cards do usually have a pretty big impact on the outcome of this matchup. Looks like 2 Tina pieces, possibly just 2 Tina V stars. I don't know. That might be a V. Yeah. Okay. So keeping the V makes sense. Probably. Yeah, I think we can see that concealed here. He does only have the one energy and obviously wants to retreat it, but high chances that he just draws another energy like he did, or since he has that switch card regard. Ooh, I really would have liked to seen that just energy retreated off. Um, but choosing to keep or to use that switch card instead, which is fine. Super Rod off the top, not great for Justin. He has a few options here. I agree with this play. Probably he's just gonna start with that. Start with the comfy. I think he's probably gonna end up using that Forest Seal Stone this turn. The reason why he doesn't start with the Battle Pass is because he needs to be able to keep. Well, I thought at least he would keep the Dragonite as an option, but it's possible he doesn't see the Cramorant as that important in this particular situation. Um, so that's why at least I would assume that he's not immediately playing that Battle Pass, but it also makes sense because he's fine drawing into the Manaphy there. He wants to end with it in play to prevent any turn 2 ninja plays from Reno, which would be realistic. It could happen with a another bench of a Comfy. And I understand what Justin is going for here. Like he really does not want to bench that Dragonite if he can avoid it. And it's possible that um the Cram is not worth benching the Dragonite. Although for the most part it keeps the prize trade at Reno goes up 1 um and Justin is basically sacrificing not taking a prize for taking a prize but giving up a liability, which I'm not sure is actually correct. Justin really wants both of these cards, but the Roxanne is probably going to be more important, so I would expect to see the Echoing Horn hit the Lost Zone. Um, there's not going to be any Pokemon in play for Justin if he doesn't hit that Cram. If he was in line to hit that Cram, the Echoing Horn actually has a lot of uses in this matchup because if Reno were to bench another Pokemon, which would not be too unlikely, that isn't Sableye, that would allow Justin to pretty easily hit that turn 2 board lock play, which just gives him so much time, so much flexibility to hit what he needs. So, but without that turn 1 Cram, he does not have as big an advantage in this matchup and is gonna go behind on prizes, but not going to be giving up that 1 prize liability or that 2 prize liability for later in the game. So this makes sense. Yep, just gonna see the concealed, which I understand why Reno kept that energy. The path is actually pretty nice here, but in general, switch cards are pretty important. So when you can avoid using them, you usually would like to.
Look like Giratina and a Sableye there.
Yeah. I'll assume he's gonna take that Sableye, but no guarantees. But he would ideally like to have access to as many Sableyes as possible in this particular matchup. So I imagine that Giratina V-Star is just gonna be hitting the Lost Zone, keeping the Sableye in hand, and then we could. Well, we need to see another Comfy usage, which is one reason why it maybe wasn't correct to use that concealed cards there in that situation, because he could have guaranteed at least the Cram attack, but I don't think he quite has that at this point in time.
So it looks like Reno valued.
That team. Oh, it looks like that was actually an
maybe
escape.
an escape rope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
escape rope does actually have some validity just because that does guarantee the Sableye attack. So I can definitely see the justification for keeping the escape rope there. Since it was not a Tina piece.
Yeah.
I imagine the escape rope's just gonna have to be played, which definitely puts Justin at a decent spot still. It should always be Ninja because Reno can't even expect to hit the Sableye on his next turn. So that gives Justin a decent amount of time to respond to this. That path is gonna set Justin back a little bit. He definitely would have liked the opportunity to use concealed cards. The other thing, if Justin's not using the cram, I would have liked to see the cram not be benched because now Justin can't bench a V to use that Force Seal Stone in his hand and a Sableye at the same time, which the odds of him Sableyeing with two in the lost zone are slim, but not having that option might be a little bit unfortunate later in the game.
Yeah, it looked like there was at least one vacuum prize as well.
We do play 3 in this list, so not the worst thing. But this could be another turn of neither player using a chorus if Justin does not see an out here. Yeah, not seeing. Oh, not even hitting the cram. Yeah, and the decision to not use that chorus on his first turn might be coming back to bite Justin here just a little bit. He's going behind quite a bit of damage, quite a bit of resources for essentially nothing as of yet. Just gonna be interesting to see how Reno can respond, but I think as these turns are progressing, it's seeming likely at least that Justin would probably should have used that Force Seal Stone turn 1 to get that chorus.
Reno
Just with the attack.
attaching?
It might just be an attach attack, which, I mean, Reno doesn't like, but he can manage with that. He might have a boss in hand, so I could definitely see boss on Manaphy, but not advancing his lost zone means he's still quite a ways away from Sableye, and it definitely could be possible. It definitely could be, not maybe realistic, but I could see Justin hitting the Sableye this turn, absolutely. Does have that nest ball in hand, which means if he wants to, he does have that option to get the Dragonite, but that would mean he needs two. It means he needs 2 vacuums in order to Sableye this turn, and I don't think he even has one in hand quite yet. So still a little bit of a ways away. And with those vacuums, they're not like free cards. Like you still need to have some cards to get rid of. So going to 7 this turn is not bad. There's 2 battle pass, but I do not think he hit the 2 vacuums that he quite needed. So I don't even think there's. Looks like he's gonna just have to play a. Choosing to use that switch card. I maybe would have liked to just seen the gate get used. He does have no gates down at this point in time, and they're not that essential. So I could definitely have. I could definitely see a line where that Mirage Gate could have been used, saving that switch cart, maybe for Greninja later on a later turn. Few opportunities. But overall, I think Justin is in a fine spot, not where he would like to be after 3 turns where he could have potentially played Chorus, having only played 1, but he is on. He does have the Sableye guaranteed next turn as long as his hand is not disrupted. So, not in a terrible spot, but could definitely be stronger. And I think it probably would have if he had opted to use that turn 1 Dragonite.
Reno did top deck the boss here. I'm not sure we'll see it come down this turn, but
Yeah, he
could
ideally
be
wants. I'm not sure how many he
impactful if it
plays, but
does.
he ideally wants to save at least a boss for that Dragonite boss play I was mentioning. And additionally, if Reno can avoid benching another 1 prize, or Justin doesn't have a great path to victory, but he also, I mean, with that line, that being said, he doesn't get a chance to use Sableye in that case. So that's probably not quite what he wants. Just going to be interested to see what Reno opts do on this turn? Not too many cards played for him. He is just the choruses have not been very plentiful this game. Justin does have another one in hand, but Reno has not been able to use that second one.
Yeah, both players just really struggling to piece together their ideal game plan here and trying to make do with what cards are given to them.
Reading the chat, Justin is not playing Kyogre currently in this list, so that's not going to be an option for him.
How would you feel if Reno put down the Giratina here?
I
Trying
think
to eye up a boss next turn with potential V-Star.
yeah, I think the Tina bench is pretty proactive here. I could even see the Shred this turn. Yes, that does open up Justin to Dragonite, but then Justin is putting so much damage on his already decently damaged board from that Cram, so just a Shred could definitely be a reasonable line here. But if Reno does play that boss, looks like on Dragonite.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he necessarily has an attack this turn. And Justin has to be pretty happy with that because he does now have a pretty big opportunity to come back. Top taking that switch card too, meaning the Dragonite is going to have the opportunity to get moved from the active and yeah, just that's generally good. He ideally wants to play Rope to save that switch card. Using one of his many gates left now is good. He only had the one Psychic and the one Lightning. Or he actually had two Psychics in deck, but only the one Lightning, which is the ideal energy to retreat. So if he can probably play that Rope, and at worst case play that switch card, which he's completely fine with, then he has the Sableye this turn, which is set to put him in a pretty good position. Yeah, probably just gonna be a Comfey and a Vacuum hitting the Lost Zone. Those aren't too important currently. We could see the Pokestop come in play, probably get used, but it's also a little bit risky with Palpad already being in the Lost Zone. But the one thing that Pokestop does open up would be the use of Ninja for both players, which Justin doesn't really want to give Reno.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big need to play Pokestop here.
Yeah, I would.
You're just gonna go into Greninja anyways, so.
Yeah. So
Might as
I
well
see
save it.
Justin choosing to keep the boss, which I'm not too sure about. But if Reno does opt to bench a Sableye later on, I don't know. I'm not actually too big of a fan of keeping the boss there. I'm not sure what the line is where Justin thinks he'll need boss. But I mean, he does not. He does. That Vacuum's fine. He knows he has nothing benched. Knock out the man. Yeah, this is the line I would have went for. Knock out the man if you put the 5 on the Comfey. I'm just a little bit interested on what his justification was for keeping the boss. But there is the obvious play of Reno benching a Tina in the next couple of turns and just having the option to boss. But I think at this point, the Psychic in hand allows Justin to use the least amount of resources next turn. And I think also by this point, it's safe to expect that Reno is not planning on benching any Tinas this game.
Yeah, I think if he wanted to go for a Tina Plage, he would have put one down last turn, 2 turns ago. He's had one in his hand pretty much the whole game, I believe. Maybe just not viewing it as safe with the Dragonite out
Justin
there.
is 3-0. Justin is 3-0.
Justin is.
Let's see, Reno opting to put the Comfey in the Lost Zone is probably the right choice. At this point, all your prizes are out on board.
Yeah.
Benching another Comfey doesn't really do much for you here.
So I believe Reno plays 3 Super Odd. I think that's what we saw last game. Just responding to the chat. But yeah, Justin regardless does have access to those multi-prize turns. Switch card being played on the active, so not even healing any of that damage. Just gonna see a Cram. And regardless, I don't think Justin is planning on. I don't think Justin is planning on taking multiple prizes because he knows that if he can avoid playing into that Roxanne, then Reno doesn't have a great win con. I could also see him just going for the ninja this turn, hitting the ninja and cram himself, as he is down to 4 prizes. So that would make sense. There's a gate, rope, and so really good
It's a
Pokestop.
good 3.
But at this point, his deck is very low. Almost all of his supporters are played or in his hand. So that was pretty realistic Pokestop at this point in the game for Turbo Lost Box. Deck is mostly item cards. Most of the Pokemon and supporters are in his hand, so I think he definitely saw that or something similar to it coming, and he also already had all of those resources regardless. So just gonna see. Yeah, I imagine we'll see that Ninja play onto Krem and Reno's Ninja because then Justin guaranteed wins with 2 Sableyes. But we could see something different, so I'll be interested to see where Justin goes with this turn. I don't think he wants to. I think at the very least, Cram is getting hit, and at that point, I think it's just correct for Justin to hit Cram Ninja. Additionally, if Justin opted not to bench, yeah, there we go. There's a 290. So just playing around the Roxanne. And additionally, if Justin opted not to bench that Sableye and Reno just went with a Sableye of his own, it's overwhelmingly likely that Justin could get 2 Sableyes into play. So even if Reno played like multiple switch cards this turn, it would not matter because Justin doesn't quite win with what he has on board. And I think he will have to play into Roxanne. So he would have liked to been able to play 2 Sableyes onto his board, but regardless, there we're gonna see probably just the Cram attack anyways, which would give him the opportunity to bench 2 Sableyes.
Reno opting to get rid of the Colress.
Yeah, probably.
He does have one in
He
hand.
has one in hand, and probably at this point realizing Justin's not disrupting his. Well, Justin has the Roxanne in hand, so it's after he takes a prize this turn, he probably will get hand disrupted just because that's the correct play for Justin to make. But I don't know exactly what the Colress was lost owned over, but I'm assuming it's an important resource. I don't think Reno plays Clara. It's not very.
Don't believe so
It's
either.
especially if I am correct about the 3 super odds. If I'm correct about 3 super odds, then it would make even less sense for him to have Clara. So we're probably just. Does Reno have 10 in the lost zone? I don't think he quite does.
Looks like he might have 9.
Yeah. And actually, with the bench of that Tina, that's going to allow Justin to perfectly play around Roxanne now. He's going to play a Roxanne of his own regardless, but Justin would not have been able to put enough damage counters in. Well, actually, 7, 3, 1, 1. Oh, actually, no, never mind. Justin actually would have had the perfect amount of damage counters to not take a knockout regardless. Yeah, so Justin was fine regardless of that Tina bench, at least in terms of playing around Roxanne, but yeah, that's ultimately not going to be very influential.
Benching a second one?
This could just be Reno playing around Justin's Roxanne if
Yeah.
he thinks he plays it. But overall, we'll probably see that path come in play as well. The Pokestop isn't too strong for Reno. And looks like we also might see a Shred, although I believe the Jet energy was attached this turn, so another energy cannot be attached to Tina as it is, but he is going to play that second gate because he can pretty confidently say that his Tinas are not getting knocked, but it looks like he might just be going for that Cram attack instead. which is also completely fine. But Reno can still have his Iono, but with Justin holding his own Roxanne in hand, Reno has no way to play around that with as long as he's taking a knockout. So it looks like Justin's gonna have almost everything he wants next turn. Even if this Comfy were to be switch carded, it wouldn't make a big deal in terms of Justin's math of winning in 2 Sableyes. So Justin's looking to have this one pretty cleaned up. There is always the chance that his Roxanne gives him nothing if he plays it, because he doesn't quite have. Oh, he actually just
a pass.
Just a pass from Reno. I'm not too sure about this pass.
Use 2 gates and attached the jets, so
Yeah, I guess he
not
maybe
too
just
many
didn't.
options to get out there.
Yeah, that might just be true, but Justin playing this rod. I don't know if he necessarily had to yet, but he actually is playing 3 Sableye. So, but he's not gonna play into the Roxanne regardless. So, Reno probably has to hope that he can hit Justin with an Iono next turn, and that it's just fortunate enough that off those 4, Justin doesn't find the out to Sableye again. But the odds of that happening are pretty unlikely at this point, and we're just gonna see Justin 6 on the Comfy. Oh, actually no. So if Reno had not benched one of those Tinas, Justin would have actually had to take a knockout this turn, but now he can safely avoid it. Because for some reason I thought Justin would have to put 7 on Comfy, but obviously that would take a knockout. So that is only 11 damage, because 6 on Comfy.
Right. Needs 1 more, I think.
So he doesn't have to put 1 more in play. I would really like to see him just put that 1 on a Tina. There's no reason for him to play in Roxanne.
Just keep it safe here.
I do, if the 1 energy would go on Tina anyways, it wouldn't matter. But that is only 11 damage counters in play. I'll just go out there and
Just gonna double check some math here, make sure everything is good to go. Even if we personally don't think it'll have a big impact on the game, always gotta follow the rules. Sableye puts 12 damage counters, you can't put 11, can't put 10. Must be 12. So if there is 1 damage counter that was not placed, it will need to go somewhere. We expect it'll end up on a Giratina. Or Justin might be taking a knockout then. So let's see. Just working on getting the game state figured out, making sure everything's good. Yeah, so there we go. Putting it on the Giratina like we expected it to go. This ensures that Roxanne cannot be played, which will let Justin have more cards in his hand should any disruption be played, as opposed to going down to 3 or 2 cards with Roxanne and then the draw.
Yeah, so just had to make sure that Justin was not choosing to put that last damage counter, or I mean, just had to make sure that that last damage counter was not going on one of Reno's Pokemon, because that would allow Justin to play Roxanne. So had to make sure that he decided where it was going. But just gonna go with the safe play of basically putting that useless damage counter on the Tina. And all of Reno's 4-1 prizes are 1 damage counter away. So that means Reno would have to play 3 switch cards this turn, which I don't think he has that left.
I don't think he has.
I know for a fact he doesn't have 3 switch cards left. So not
just taking the knockout on Sableye.
Yeah, there's a psychic. Justin was just looking for a psychic or gate, so
there it is.
there it is. Just gonna win by placing 1 damage counter on all 4 of Reno's remaining 1 prizers and lock up the game from a relatively shaky start. But Reno really was, although he was putting on the pressure, he really didn't have anything in hand to back it up, having to pass multiple turns when he could have realistically attacked. Just never going to be enough to beat a Turbo Lost Box that eventually is drawing everything they need.
Yep.
So we're going
I
to see.
think both players played it fairly well.
Yep.
Reno was just a little slow to start, and unfortunately the turbo deck turbos out, and even a slow start can't hold them back.
Hey, we got the backup.
We're going to be switching to our backup game, which is Arc Slaking Pika with Path versus just Gardy. This game's relatively recently started. Looks like Dan has a bit of an advantage as it is right now, especially with all that damage on a Pikachu. Dan is really 2 attacks away from cleaning up this game, but those attacks are not going to be easy to get. He looks like he has a small hand with Path in play, so Kevin shouldn't be too upset about the position he's currently in. Looks like, yep, that ninja being sent to the active makes sense.
I wonder if the Spiritomb started in the game as the active, or just kind of sitting on the bench.
Well,
But
Kevin does need that Spiritomb, but he likes it in play, just so that the Slacking can always attack even when Path is
yep,
not in
that's
play.
right. That's right. Slaking's ability. I was thinking Zacian. I was like, that doesn't do anything.
So with those grass energies, it actually does look like this is Arctina Pika with Slacking. So a lot kind of crammed in here for Kevin, but seems to have been working for him today so far, and he's not in a too bad of a spot here versus Dan. So be interested to see how this game plays out. Looks like Kevin is just going to. Oh, it looks like he's going to play Iono, which is giving Dan a few more cards in hand, but it really didn't look like his hand had much to work with besides just another Iono the next turn. So I think this Iono is fine to be played. I don't think he can be too upset about it. Draws another energy. Not sure if he's attached this turn, but probably would like to get an attachment on an Arceus if possible.
That would be my guess. Is that your next attacker?
I
It's
would.
probably not the Pikachu.
Oh, just gonna pass. It seems. It looks like that Slacking maybe only has
2 energy,
2 energy
and a choice.
I mean,
band?
that looks like a
So I can't
DTE and 2
yeah,
basics.
it looks like something is on it.
But I guess Kevin is going for forcing Dan to have a basic psychic energy to retreat, or he can. But looks like he did hit one off Shining Arcana and just gonna attach it to the active. That's gonna put Dan at least a bit ahead. There's a chance he wants to end with this ninja in the active if he doesn't draw the cards to take a knockout here, but another Shining Arcana is pretty nice, and means he probably just wants to at least. Oh, that Worker's a great draw for Dan. That's gonna almost ensure a knockout here on that Slacking. Gonna thin a little bit before he plays it. But if Dan can put enough energy in play, where he can knock out the Slacking and put an energy on Gardy, then he'll be just a boss away. Oh, he actually has the boss this turn.
Opting
So
for the
not
Pika.
even needing to use that Worker to get the knockout here, and just gonna retreat the active, take a knockout on that flying Pikachu VMAX. Although this does leave him relatively susceptible to Iono, so it's decent opportunity for Kevin to win in about 3 attacks. Although if the only thing he has powered up is the Slacking, I don't love his position. Oh, that looks like a V-Guard, so that Slacking did only have 3 energy.
Yeah. That is a
I think
V-Guard
something
there.
we maybe could have seen from Kevin the last turn was before using that escape rope, retreating the Pikachu and then escape roping back into Pikachu. Unless it was always his plan to just leave that Greninja in the active if that's what Dan promoted. So But yeah, we could have seen the retreat into anything that wasn't the slacking, and then if that's what he wants in the active, after playing the rope, he has the active to bring the Pikachu back up, or to bring that slacking and just leave it into the active, leave it in the active. I think I maybe would have preferred to see that Spiritomb the previous turn when slacking was promoted, especially if slacking only had 3 energies attached. Or yeah, probably because it's difficult for Dan to have boss and justify boss on a one prizer. So that is like one thing to keep in mind. But
Getting rid of an Iono.
getting rid of an Iono, I'm assuming he has another one in hand, but can't be sure. Or maybe saying
Maybe for
I
barrel.
maybe saying I can't afford to Iona this turn. I have to boss the Gardy EX, but he does have a choice spell attached, which is not going to give him the extra damage that he might be playing around. So I don't see an Iono in that hand. Just gonna see that barrel for 3.
Oh, okay. Couldn't quite tell how many he had. As a research.
If Kevin would not disrupt Dan's hand here, which looks like he's just maybe not. Looks like he has a boss.
That is a boss, yeah.
But regardless, I don't see any option to discard anything from, or to disrupt anything from Dan's hand or board after discarding the Iono. So
Yeah. I
And-
wonder if he didn't want to Iono in case Dan bossed up the barrel. But
he's never the one. If Dan has the boss, then Dan
he has the
basically
boss,
has
then
the
he just
game,
bosses
yeah.
up Spiritomb. But that's the only reason I could think of to not Iono there.
But we know Dan has that worker in hand, so
Yeah,
after playing that worker, this should
that
be
should be pretty wrapped up.
pretty simple win. Just discarding that path. And then should have enough energy. There's a
There's a
Zacian,
Zacian, yep.
so
Dan double checking his math here, making sure he has all the energy he needs.
but just gonna see that Zacian come in active. 4, 5, 6.
Hopefully he remembers about the V-Guard, but it looks like he's just attaching everything he can.
Yeah, attaching all the energies is more than enough for that slacking, which only, even with V-Guard, only has 260, so
Yep, you never know.
Seven,
Sometimes you forget it and you end up doing 230 or something like that and just whiffing the knockout. So,
but yeah, that win looked to be pretty clean for Dan. I'm assuming Kevin did not have quite his optimal start based on the position that we saw when we jumped into this game, but Kevin really had to play that Iono that turn to really keep any decent chance of winning. And after discarding it, I'm assuming that he maybe thought he could boss the Gardy EX and then realized during his turn.
I think that's what he was
realized
hoping
during his
for.
turn the choice belt does not activate for the Gardy EX, but not. But still 3-0 doubles his money that he paid for his entry. So
Yep.
3-1. Sorry. And yeah.
Thank everyone for coming out.
So thank you guys all for watching, and thanks to everyone that came out and played tonight. Hope to see you soon again.
Good night.
Night.